The Packers gave us a wonderful Christmas gift, and also other teams gave us a lift. Hackett got the axe, Foles took 7 sacks, and Minshew mania does persist. Welcome to the Mishpo. Everybody, welcome to the Week 17 episode of the Mishpo, also known as the penultimate episode of the season. Yes, there will be one episode, obviously, next week, recapping the winners of this next week, of this current week, and congratulate the champion and shame the Sacco, which, let's just say, has a decent chance to be me, as I am in that matchup. So wasn't that fun? Um, I'm in the basement bedroom at my house. This is where the guests stay. So I'm sure a few of you have stayed down here. Oh boy, and the dogs are going to be right behind us this whole time, probably fighting. So, hey, could you guys just chill for a little bit? Thank you. But yeah, sure, some of you have stayed down here a time or two. But yeah, for this week's episode, we have a Milwaukee milk chocolate milk stout. It has white chocolate milk stout with white chocolate vanilla cocoa nibs and everyone's favorite, lactose. So I planned out my beers like 3 weeks, 4 weeks in advance, and I picked this one for today. Don't remember exactly why. Ooh, that is very dark, as you can see there. Um, and the foam is quite brown, as you would expect. And Lily's still back there. Loki has left. I'm not sure where he went, but oh, there goes Lily. Oh, actually, Loki's back. Anyway, enough with the dogs. We will quickly just run through last week's matchups, and then we'll jump into the final matchups of the week. Firstly, myself versus Derek. This one was very low scoring. Both teams below 100 points. I believe this is the only matchup of that kind. Yep, the only matchup of that kind this week, which is kind of fitting because these are two teams battling in the toilet bowl. There were some fine performances from either side. Justin Jefferson had 31.3 for Derek, 12.5 for both Chuba Hubbard and Ken Walker, so not too bad. Sheesh, I didn't realize this, but the Denver Broncos defense, negative 5.5 points for Derek. So, tried to. Oh wait, this isn't my matchup. That was Brian's matchup against Bruce. We'll get to that one in a second. Hey, would you guys just chill, please? Anyway, Kirk Cousins, 24.16 for Derek, 25 for James Conner, and 11.75. The Eagles defense, always very good. I think they're probably number 3 defense on the season. So very good stuff from them. And then my side, I don't really want to talk about it. Brandon Cooks at 13.4, so not the worst, especially returning after like a month off for injury. And then Rachaad White, 15.3, so that's also not too bad. I did get 11. No, I didn't. I was going to say my defense did well, but they didn't even really do that well. 3.5 points from the Browns defense, but yeah, Derek got the win, 94.61 to 63.36 for myself. Also, on the day that I'm recording this, which quick time check, 3:33 on December 28th. Today is Derek's birthday. So happy birthday, Derek. I hope you have a good one. I gifted you a victory. So let's call it even there. So yeah, next up, already kind of touched on this matchup, Bruce versus Brian, one of the championship matchups. As I mentioned before, Justin Jefferson, 31.3, not too bad, obviously, very good, actually. 17.6 from Derrick Henry, 17.7 from Terry McLaurin, 12.5 from both Chuba and Ken Walker, so pretty good. And then the mentioned negative 5.5 from the Broncos defense. However, that negative was not enough to make Brian lose. Bruce did lose to Brian. Brian won. But Bruce's side did have some decent performances. 20 Pog, 14.3 from Tyreek Hill, 12.8 from Dawson Knox. Titans defense had 9.5, so not too bad there. But Brian, as I mentioned, did get the win and is one of the two teams playing in the championship. Brian won 113.12 to Bruce's 91.56. And the other championship matchup for this past week was State Farm versus Fiala. Hey, actually, I'm going to take a quick sip of this just to get a, just because. Yep, that is chocolatey and is very stouty. Bruce would probably like this because I know Bruce likes milk stouts. Anyway, this one was a decently high-scoring matchup. State Farm versus Fiala. Over on Fiala's side, 23.98 from Josh Allen, so very solid stuff from Josh Allen. 31.3 from Devonta Smith. 15.1 from DK Metcalf. Keenan Allen had the 21.4. Oofed, there was a negative 7.25 from the Detroit Lions defense, though. As well as only 1.4 from D-Hop and 0 from Gerald Everett. So over on State Farm side, 23.76 from Patrick Mahomes, 23.9. Austin Eckler, 25.2. Leonard Fournette, 25.3 from Jalen Waddle. Good stuff from him. And 16.25 from the Buffalo Bills defense. State Farm got the victory, 138.31 to Fiala's 110.13. And the fifth place matchup, which these two teams do not play this week, so I'm not missing anybody when I'm only covering 6 matchups, was Adam versus Sam. Tua Tagovailoa, 11.4 points for Sam. He has another concussion, so not too great for him. Maybe we won't see him again this season, which is, I guess, kind of lucky for Sam because you're done for the season. So Najee Harris had 15.5, 13.1 from Zeke, 26.8 from T. Higgins, 17.3 from Travis Kelce. So very solid always from him. And the Baltimore Ravens defense, 10 points. San Francisco's defense had 11 over there for Adam. Some decent performances. Noah Fant had 9.2. Pat Frymuth, 13.6. Chris Godwin, 14.3. A.J. Brown, 16.3. And 17.8 from Joe Mixon. In the end, Adam got the victory, 117.6 to Sam's 104.2. And so Adam is our 5th place team this season. T-Corn versus Colin in one of the 2 Sago matchups, the first one being Derek and I. This one was not that close, but also fairly high scoring. Deshaun Watson, 12.8, so not great, and also not super great for Michael Carter, who got 10 points. 30 from George Kittle, so that's, really good. Hopefully he doesn't do that much scoring this week, because why not? 14.8 from DJ Chark. And 11.5 from the Bengals defense. And if you're wondering why I just tilted my head, Bree texted me, and it showed up on my phone, so which is sideways, as you can tell from the video. So over on T-Corn's side, some better scores. Not Justin Herbert, though, 5.5 from him, or Jamal Williams, 3.4 from him. But from there on out, it gets a bit better. Amari Cooper had 13.2, Saquon Barkley 27.3, and CeeDee Lamb had 34. Also decent performances from Jacoby Myers at 20.3, Christian Watson 10.9 before leaving with a hip injury. Hopefully he's okay for this week's matchup. T-Corn got the victory, 127.55 to Collins 105. So Colin will be joining me in the Sacco matchup. And then we just had 2 consolation matchups to figure out the seeding for the rest of the league. Abby versus Lincoln is first up. This one was probably the closest matchup on the week. Over on Abby's side, Derek Carr, who is now benched, only had 9.36, so that's pretty fun stuff over there in Vegas. I wonder how Devontae feels about that. AJ Dillon had 12.8, George Pickens 16.7, 35.9 from TJ Hawkinson, so pretty good stuff from him. And Gabe Davis had 10.5, so finally not too bad from him. Had a fumble lost, so he would have been more around 14.5 maybe. But that's okay. Dak Prescott over on Lincoln's side, 27.98, 12.8 from Jerick McKinnon, 13.8 from Christian McCaffrey. So probably wanted a bit better of a score from him. And yeah, Lily's still down here. So 17.7 from Jerry Jeudy, 5.9 from J.K. Dobbins, and 13.75 from the Chiefs defense. So not too bad. Lincoln got the win, 109.13 to 103.51 for Abby, which will bring us on to the last matchup of the last week, which was also fairly close. It is another one of those consolation matchups. Caleb versus Michael. For Caleb, Jared Goff at 24.7, so not too bad. 19 points from Alvin Kamara. Did not take Tyler Lockett out of your lineup, despite him being out, which is a very big power play over there for you, Caleb. DeAndre Johnson had 11.4, 18.3 from Evan Engram, 12.9 from Jamar Chase, and some other pretty solid scores as well. Over for Michael. Kind of disappointing scores, especially from your top three players. Tom Brady, 13.34. Dalvin Cook, 10.7. And Ramondre Stevenson, 1.6. So not very good there. Your receivers did a bit better, though. 14.6 from Amon-Ra. And Brandon Ayuk, 13.1. So pretty solid. Devin Singletary, easily the best performer on the team, who had 20.5 points. And a not too bad score from the Patriots defense, 12.75. So Caleb got the victory in this matchup, 110.3 to Michael's 99.19. And now, before we jump into the final matchups of the season, I'll take a sip of my beer. And then we will jump into the power rankings. Alrighty. Not the final power rankings, but the power rankings going into the last week of the season. At 14, I've got yours truly, myself. At 13, Colin. 12, Derek. 11, T-Corn. 10, Abby. 9, Michael. 8, Caleb. 7, Lincoln. Sam. 6, Adam. 5, Bruce at 4, Fiala 3, Brian at 2, and number 1, State Farm. Which will bring us on to the matchups for this week. And as I mentioned before, Sam and Adam do not have a matchup. Adam took 5th place last week after losing in the first round of the playoffs. And so those two are done for the season. So great season, fellas. Look forward to seeing you next year. So first up, myself versus Colin, the Sacco matchup. I had some disappointing player performances last week, especially from Justin Fields, who I think had like 10 points, not even. So I'm really hoping he can kick it up a notch. But the rest of my lineup is pretty fluid. I will be starting, I'm sure, Rachaad White and probably Brandon Cooks, but literally anybody else on my team could be not in my lineup by the time matchups. Probably pretty locked for David Njoku and Hassan Haskins, who, if things keep trending the way they are trending, should get the start on Thursday night, as Derrick Henry is supposed to miss. So that's pretty cool. Starting running back off the waivers for me. Definitely would need that. Over on Colin's side, there are some obviously pretty solid players. Hollywood Brown, now that he was really good, but now with Trace McSorley behind center, has not been great. Michael Pittman, same kind of thing. was solid earlier, but now we've got Nick Foles throwing him the ball. George Kittle, though, has benefited from a lesser quarterback in, I can't remember his name. I should remember his name. My brother is a huge fan for some reason. Brock Purdy. So, see how well they do. But hey, I'm gonna pick myself here. You've gotta have confidence in what you're doing here, and so I will be picking myself in the Sacco matchup, meaning I think I will take 13th place, and Colin, of course, 14, and Sacco. That would be a 2-time Sacco for Colin. So let's make some history, folks. Um, our next matchup is the 11th place matchup: Derek versus T-Corn. Obviously, these two teams are pretty similar. Same record for both of them. Both projected within 12 points of each other. But obviously, projections don't quite mean much. The quarterbacks are pretty solid. Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence has been playing really well lately, where Justin Herbert has not necessarily. Kind of similar thing with the running backs. Zonovan Knight lately has not been great, and James Conner has, and that's kind of the same thing over for T-Corn with Jamal Williams not being super great lately, also questionable at the moment. Where Saquon obviously has been very solid receivers in this matchup as well. We've been through all of this, but CD Lamb and Amari Cooper over for T-Corn, and Steph Diggs and Romeo Doubs, where if Christian Watson is to miss potentially, Romeo will take a big step forward. Speaking of Christian Watson, T-Corn does have Christian Watson. There's lots of moving pieces. Another receiver, Gallup, over there for Derek, so another potential fun matchup between him and CD Lamb. In this matchup, though, I will be picking. Did I mention Stephon Diggs is in there too? But yeah, he's pretty good. T-Court I will be picking for this matchup, and I do think it will be a close one, which will bring us on to the 9th place matchup. And I just spit a little bit right there. Isn't that fun? The 9th place matchup, which is Abby versus Michael. Currently, Abby's got that good old trick where she's keeping players in her lineup that aren't going to be playing. Derek Carr on this bench, but currently in her lineup. We'll see if that is changed by the time matchups start. She currently does not. Well, actually, just kidding. She has Mike White. I don't know what I'm saying, but if she plugs Mike White in, it will definitely be a closer matchup. There's some solid players. You got the Green Bay running backs over there for Abby, and Dalvin and Ramondre, who had stinker weeks. Hopefully, we'll see if they turn it around for Michael. Solid receivers also for Michael is Amon-Ra and Brandon Ayuk. And another pass catcher over there for Abby in TJ Hockenson, who obviously had that great week last week. I will be picking Michael in this matchup, and I do not think it will be that close. Obviously, if Abby forgets to sub out Derek Carr, it will be even less close. But yeah, even if Mike White is in that lineup or a different quarterback, I think it will not be that close. Which will bring us on to the 7th place matchup, Lincoln versus Caleb. This one seems like it's poised to be pretty close, and I do think it will be pretty close. Probably the closest matchup by my estimations on the week. Dak Prescott and Jared Goff are the quarterbacks who both have been doing very well lately. As well as a couple running backs doing pretty well. Jerick McKinnon and Christian McCaffrey over there for Lincoln, and David Montgomery and Alvin Kamara over there for Caleb. So Tyler Lockett currently in your lineup for Caleb. We'll see if he plays this week. Still coming back from that broken finger. Had the surgery and seems to be healing up pretty fine, but we'll see how everything goes. And another kind of interesting player over there for Lincoln is Andrews, Mark Andrews, that is, who has been not very great. Basically, the last month, you could even go back to, even week 6 if you really wanted to. That's the last time he was, above. Well, he had 12.3 in week 11, but you probably want a bit more from a tight end of his caliber. So we'll see if he can return to form this week on Sunday Night Football versus Pittsburgh. I will be picking Lincoln in this close matchup, but it should be good. which will bring us on to the third place matchup, Bruce versus Fiala. Very different quarterbacks here. Josh Allen, who's been a dominant quarterback for years in the NFL, and Brock Purdy, who was Mr. Irrelevant and has shown lately that he can sling that rock. So, um, we've been through all of these teams so many times this season. You pretty much all know the rosters, but it doesn't hurt to just glance over them again. Nick Chubb and Tony Pollard for Bruce are pretty solid running backs, obviously, and Isaiah Pacheco and Travis Etienne also pretty good. So see how well they do. Devontae Adams is over on Bruce's side, and with Derek Carr no longer starting, we'll see how well he can do with Jarrett McKinnon now throwing him the rock. Speaking of not having a quarterback, Tua, I believe, will miss this week, so that maybe will affect Tyreek Hill. So we'll see how that plays, into this matchup. I will be picking Fiala, and I do also think this one will be a fairly close matchup, but who's to say? And before we jump into our championship matchup, hey, I'm going to take a quick sip of beer. All right, the championship matchup. State Farm versus Brian. A little bit of a fun fact, I did beat Brian earlier in the season, so if Brian does win this championship, I beat him. So who's really the best? Obviously, it would be Brian, but it's just a little fun factoid. Also, Colin and I did look this up. We have split the season series so far 1-1, and the most recent matchup, which was the last week of the regular season, which I believe was like week 15, I also won that matchup. So if history is to repeat itself, it'll be a tie. No, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, back to this matchup. Over for Brian, the biggest question mark, obviously, is Derrick Henry, who is very, very good at running the football. Currently questionable. Actually, I believe doubtful is the phrase that I heard affiliated with Derrick Henry. Just the way that things are working out, this matchup doesn't really matter for Tennessee. It's next week. If they win, then they win the division. So the theory is they'll rest Derrick Henry, save him for that week, because that's the more important week for the team, which kind of leaves Derrick Henry managers high and dry. But it does benefit the little guys like me who has Hassan Haskins. But that's neither here nor there. Obviously, if Derrick Henry does not play, that'll be a stinker. You've got Damian Harris and Tyler Algier on your bench, so I'm sure you'll just plug one of those two in. Hey, stop it. Other than that, obviously Justin Jefferson's very good, and Terry McLaurin has been pretty good lately. Now with Carson Wentz starting over there in Washington, I wonder how well he will do. Hey, because I remember last time Carson started, it was more Jahan Dotson that he favored, if I remember correctly. Obviously, Chuba Hubbard and Ken Walker are pretty solid with running backs in your flex spots. And then, some other pretty solid players sprinkled throughout. Darren Waller, we'll see how well he can do. And, so over on State Farm side, though, it will be Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. Very solid quarterback, obviously. Austin Eckler, currently questionable. We'll see how well he can do this week if he does indeed play, which, you probably definitely want him to. Leonard Fournette has been doing well. Obviously, Mike Evans, Jalen Waddle. Mike Evans had a bit of an up week, I believe, this past week. Actually, just kidding. He only had 5.9, so he's been kind of pooping. But Jalen Waddle did good, so he probably made up for it, hopefully, for you. And then Dalton Schultz, Christian Kirk, and Miles Sanders round up the flex and tight end spots. This championship, I wish it was going to be a bit more climactic, but I do think State Farm will win, and I do not think it will be all that close. But yeah, that'll do it, I guess, for this week's episode. One more week left in the regular season. We will have a new champion. I will have to hunt down T-Coin for that trophy and put the winner's name on there. Um, and yeah, I guess come summertime, have a wide receiver combine, and maybe Colin will have to make a trip up here. Maybe the Sacco will already be in the area. So, hope everyone had a great Christmas as well, and hope everyone has a happy New Year. Um, and with that, thank you and thank you. Alrighty, and this flip, of course, will be for my opponent this week, Colin. Oop, we had some interference. So we get to flip it again. Oh, some more interference. Let's see if we can get this last one, or this third one, clean. And there was a lot of stuff on the floor. Oh, this is getting a bit annoying. I'll just do it a few more times. Oh my gosh, y'all saw that. Colin, you have to shotgun a beer for me. There was interference, but we've been playing with interference for a while now, so drink up, buddy.